fans are enough. You play a football match without fans, you've got nothing. It can be the greatest game in the world. If there are no people there to watch, it becomes nothing.
And to Johnston. Johnson. And a goal by Johnston. Larson. Oh, he's in. Henrik Larsson! That is sensational! Nakamura, he has done it! Isn't that just typical?
The game is over. The Rebels have won.
A star is born at Celtic!
Champions. That's who we are.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Jungle Gyms podcast. We've got myself, I've got McGinty. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad, pal. Not too bad at all. Happy to be back on a wee Tuesday Tic Talk. How's yourself?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yeah, of course, I'm good. Buoyed by the fact that we've still got a bit of sun. You know, I think it's like almost officially the end of summer, you know, before the cold weather comes in and I need to stop cutting about in a pair of shorts, which I've been doing for the past like 3-4 months, but I'm enjoying it while it lasts. Yeah, but as a Celtic fan as well, it's been great. It's been great because the last time I spoke to you wasn't actually the 2 weeks ago because I missed last week. But I actually saw you in person, and that was the Saturday. It was like right before the Glasgow derby, and we didn't know like how things were going to turn out, and what a difference the result made in terms of your mood. I wanted to get your thoughts on it because, like, some people are, I don't know, surprised. Maybe surprised is one word that some people might use. They didn't expect to come away with a result. They would have bitten your hand off for a draw. Obviously, there will be some people who will say, "No, I knew we could get the 3 points." And fair enough to you guys. I'm not going to say that you're bullshitting. I think I was pessimistic. One thing, by the way, to the viewers, hope you're all doing well, and forgive us for picking up about the Glasgow derby game. It's just that I've not properly been able to speak to you about it, mate. But one feeling that I had was pessimism going into the game. I was wondering, do we give Callum McGregor a henchman such as, you know, like Awata, you know, to protect him? Because I felt like McGregor has been marked out of the game, especially at Ibrox, in the past year or so. And we struggled to combat that under Postecoglou. So I was wondering, because we were up against it, because of the injuries, because we brought in new signings, but it was too soon to bleed them in. Do we kind of let, you know, go for the defensive, the negative approach, or do we just say, fuck it, we'll just play to our strengths, despite the fact that we've got, you know, a weak inside? Were you surprised the way that Brendan did it? Because obviously, we just, as we said, we played to our strengths. Turnbull in the number 10 position, and O'Reilly and McGregor. You know, in hindsight, you know, it was the best approach. Is that how you would have done it?
No, it's not how we would have done it. And when me and James talked about it last week, we kind of acknowledged that the first half performance made the midfield look really good, and Callum McGregor had one of his best performances this season in midfield. It was more to do with the fact that they stood off Callum McGregor so much. They gave up the midfield in that first half, which I think for me allowed the midfield to get on with what they have to do. But I still reckon, this is a bit of a tangent to the question you're asking, I still reckon a midfield that has both Turnbull and O'Reilly is not a strong midfield. And I think we kind of got away with it. So it wouldn't have been my choice. But under the circumstances of having so many injuries and so many unknowns, I think Rodgers had to go with something that he was familiar with, and something that the players had started to get familiar with, at least, for no other reason for that.
Good point. I agree with you about, well, I would word it differently. With Turnbull and O'Reilly and McGregor together as a trio, there is a lack of pace. Now,
100%.
I have been slow in coming round to liking O'Reilly as a player. And some people might think that that's a shocking opinion. But this season, what I mean by that is sometimes I watch him in a game, or I watch a game of football for Celtic, and sometimes I feel like I don't see exactly what O'Reilly does. And that sometimes after the end of the game, I'm thinking, I thought I know about football, but sometimes I'm thinking O'Reilly's obviously playing a part, but I'm not quite seeing it. I think this season it's becoming more visible, more transparent, the effect he's had. So getting back to what you're saying, as a trio, I'm not a fan of the lack of pace. However, I would take out the easy option to change would be Turnbull in that regard.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on, and by the way, to whoever is watching us, thanks very much. We know that the Celtic, Scotland and England game are on at 7:45. So if you're wanting to stick with us to ride us out even until 7:45, we appreciate that. So who do you think benefited more from the international break? And I'll kind of run you through how I think Rangers after that hiding. Whenever you get beat in a Glasgow derby, what you want is to go into a game right away, just to get that out your system. But they'll be brooding over that. And that's whatever effect you think. Do you think it'll galvanise them, or do you think it'll deepen because the media's been against them, the fans have been against them? It's been extremely negative at Ibrox. And I'm wondering what effect that's having, that negativity seeping in. I'm wondering, is Beale man enough? Or does he have the presence to as I said, galvanise the team? And if you flip it around with Celtic, I think a benefit to us having the international break is, that result might paper over the cracks. We really needed a pit stop at that moment. We needed a break, time with Rodgers and the players to kind of bed them in, the players who will not be on international duty, certainly. But Rodgers needs crucial time with the players on the training field, and that will be a benefit to us. So weighing up the two things, and obviously the injuries as well, the more time that we can pause domestic games and get the injured players back benefits us. So weighing up the two benefits for the two teams, who do you think suffered more and who do you think benefited more from this international break?
I definitely would agree with how you've kind of surmised it, that we've definitely benefited more than they have, and they've obviously going to suffer. If the result had went against us, I think we would be rightly raging and calling the odds and the shots about who should be and who shouldn't be at the club and so forth. But I think we would also see the benefits of trying to pick up, well, that's the worst result we could have had. That's the worst result at the end of a really bad run of games and performance-wise. And we would see this 2-week gap as a 2-week gap where we can do exactly what you said, but we're doing it with positivity now as opposed to potential negativity, where we would use the 2 weeks to get everybody back on the training pitch, to get people fit again, to get people a bit of a rest, a bit of a stop-start season, or the rest of it, get Rodgers' ideas across and let him, galvanise the players in some fashion to try and kick on from that and kind of get back to things. But that's a hypothetical because that never happened. We won the game. And it wasn't resounding when it wasn't a big thrashing that we hoped for. But considering the position we were in, I think it's a big sigh of relief and a big smile on our faces, players and fans alike, that we turn around and say, well, we're going to use this 2 weeks now to our positivity to do everything you just said. Whereas you look at them and just look at the media and the social media aspect of everything that's happened with them in the last 10 days, they're in meltdown. At one point for a few days there over the weekend, Michael Beale was apparently getting a show on the door. People analysing social media pictures and stuff like that is mental stuff. That's the level of meltdown that they're in, that they want managers sacked. They want wholesale changes. They're questioning £15 million of strikers. Is any of them fit to lace Morales' boots? They're in free fall. They don't know what's coming up next. But if it was us that was on the back of defeat, I think we would have grouped together as a club anyway, as a players would be, I think we would always try and see the positivity out of that result, because not because we're a positive club in that sense, but because we knew where our position was before that game. We knew we were in poor form. We knew we were threading on thin ice going into that game. So it's a big sigh of relief, a smile on our face, and regroup and go forward. But if it was a flip around, I think we would have just been like, it's fucking done.
Yeah.
Get on with it now, sort of thing. There wouldn't have been a meltdown as such. But as I keep saying, that's a hypothetical. At the end of the day, we beat them. We beat them quite comfortably, I feel, as a performance-wise, but not numerical scoreline-wise. I think we still to see a good thumping to come from this team. Somebody's going to take a beating off us at some point, which we'll see as turn of good fortune.
That will happen. We need to get more familiar with each other, as a team. Welcome to the viewers. Plunge, hope you're doing well. That's absolutely fine, mate. I don't blame you for bailing on us come 7:45. Dan Bean, Paddy's on the farm, mate. He's loving the farm. He really is. Never seen him so happy. Exactly. The benefit of it. Another kind of thing that I took away from the game, I don't want to kind of dissect it too much, but I just need to say it was, see the pressing from them. They never had the players to put on a proper press. If you think of what it was like with Sakala, Morelos, Kent, whether or not they were firing in all cylinders, they were still able to close our players down when we're trying to pass out from the back. And it was very noticeable for me that they never had the personnel to do that. Even if they did have the desire, that big Dessers, man, he takes a while to get going. Although in saying that, he did catch up with Lagerbilk. So that was one thing I took. And another thing I took from it was Hart, just being seemingly given permission to leather it whenever he wanted to. I think that simplifies Hart's game. That's not an opinion that you would have heard first. You would have heard it from other people saying that it simplifies Hart's game. And going into the, if that's going to be the way forward for him this season, then it might be more conducive to less mistakes at the back. So positives from me, definitely positives from me. What do you think about the game tonight? Scotland and England. Scotland are on the high. England, I think they drew against Ukraine. Are you going to watch it? Are you optimistic for Scotland's chances?
Not optimistic. I mean, I feel dirty saying it, but clearly England are a much better squad of players than what we've got. But Scotland are playing good. We've got, 11 qualifying wins in a row, not including the Nations League, like through World Cup and Euros or whatever it is that we've done. So we're on a good run. I know that's a pure, particular stat to try and pull out where you're manipulating a couple of fixtures not to be included. But we're on a positive run as far as Scotland's concerned. So we go into this friendly tonight. We never want to lose these games. Never, ever do you want to lose these games. But I think we go into it with confidence. At least you look back at the 2 each game with Lee Griffiths and his 2 free kicks. We know we can take something from this team. You even look at the Euro games a couple of years ago as well. You can take something off this England team if you work as a good unit, as a good squad. And I think we've got that going forward in Scotland. But I'm not going to be disheartened if we end up getting beat by them, so long as it's not like a 5-0 drubbing or some nonsense like that. We don't want to be embarrassed, but if we take the game to them and put in a good performance, that's enough for me when it comes to these kind of games.
I think, I don't really... I watch international football, but I'm not invested in it. But I would be more optimistic for Scotland. I think that whenever you hear that phrase, a team is more than the sum of their parts, I think... saying that Scotland do have some players who are playing at a high caliber level, but I think Scotland's they can play above themselves, whereas English players play within themselves. So I think there's a very good chance. It kind of makes me think back to Lee Griffiths whenever he scored those 2 fantastic free kicks against Joe Hart at Hampden, and how raging he would have been Stuart Armstrong, because he gave the ball away Look, Scotland were holding out for a 2-1 victory at Hampden, which I think the last time Scotland beat England was Don Hutchison at Wembley a long time ago, I think. But anyway, Scotland were holding out for a 2-1 victory in the last minute or so, and we're on the break. Stuart Armstrong has got the ball, and he gives it away to one of their players, and the ball gets swung in for Harry Kane to equalise. If I was Lee Griffiths, I would have been fuming, because if you think about those two fantastic free kicks and being able to actually remember that was the day that we beat England, but for Armstrong to ruin that, it would have been very, very bittersweet. And Griffiths was fantastic in that game. You can't take that away from him. No matter what he's done in his career or in his life afterwards, he'll always be able to look back in that. And that actually makes me think of Liam Scales for the Glasgow Derby game. He'll probably never be flavour of the month again for Celtic fans, but he'll always be able to bank on that, to think about that memory of getting the goal for him. Scrap that. The man in the match in that Glasgow Derby game, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Griff is a player never out of my team.
So I wanted to leave this one up for a while, and I know I'm probably jumping the gun for the order of conversations for this evening. But this is an interesting comment because I've not actually seen this yet. I'm expecting a few players back this coming week and the week after. But it's the last bit here with Tilio back in training. Still expected to be a few weeks off, but he's at least back in training. And I just want to bring it up just now. We don't need to go into the full conversation as yet, but just want to make note of that in some way. That interesting that Marco Tilio is not in the UEFA Champions League squad.
I was going to bring
the discussion later on, mate.
Well, to be honest, it's the biggest thing. Normally, we like to start off the podcast episodes with, the most kind of juicy part of the conversation. So it is the Champions League squad that Celtic have announced. So let's talk about Rocky. Do you want to start off with Rocky? He's out. He's one of the defenders who's out. I would have thought that that's because of injury, and I guess he's going to be out for longer than expected, perhaps.
Well, that's my
it's a blow.
Thinking. It's definitely a blow, especially when you consider that Navrocki was what everybody would consider the first Brendan Rodgers signing that wasn't the aftermath of what was happening before he signed. So it is a surprise, but I can only presume it's because he's probably still going to be injured deep into this qualifying campaign. To me, that says he's missing at least the first 3 games, if not the first 4 games of the Champions League, which is a long time for him to be out, which is a big surprise. But then that makes it no surprise that we signed somebody like Nat Phillips on loan to cover these 6 months for exactly this reason, that somebody like him is out for so long.
We always seem to have a knack, Europe is coming up. It's what the players, they've done the groundwork, they've won the league, you get into the Champions League, and then we seem to have these injuries, last season we had Abelgard playing for us, you know what I mean? And guy was shite, and past seasons you've had people filling in for his near Beaton and stuff like that. And it's just never how you want us to line up in these crucial games, but it is what it is. So Siegrist is out. No complaints there because you've got Bain. Bain is a Scottish guy, so you need what you need 5 Celtic trained players and then 3
4.
Scottish.
We have 5, but the minimum is 4 club trained players.
Right. Okay.
And overall, you need to have 8 nationally trained players. But obviously, if you've got 4 club trained, by default, they're also national. So it's 4 and 4 is the kind of split. But if you have more by your club, you'd need less trained elsewhere.
So you've got Siegrist out, Bernabe is out, Rocky, as we've spoken about, Kobayashi, Tilio, Kwon, And no surprise here, McCarthy, he's out as well. Who's the biggest shock for you out of that list for omissions?
Funnily enough, Bernaby. The Rocky at first, but when you think about it, yeah, of course, if he's going to be injured for that length of time, there's no point adding him. But Bernaby, purely because I appreciate not many people are fans of him, but purely because we don't have more than 2 left backs, it was a surprise to see that he's omitted from it completely. It does throw up the question, is Brendan Rodgers potentially about to give Scales a chance at left back? And we know he's not blessed with great pace or anything, but if he can just be a defensive, solid unit to help steady the ship at the back sort of thing, then Scales at left back for a period of time might actually make a hell of a lot of sense. Focus the play down Maeda or down the right side with Johnson and Abada.
Big shout, isn't it?
It is a big shout. But see, to be honest, it's not. Again, this is not a surprise, but it's very, very fucking telling that both Tillio and Kwon are just out. And the fact that Kwon's fit, from what I understand, and Tillio is back in training, as Plunge was mentioning, for both of them not to be included tells you everything you need to know that, yeah, sure, Rodgers is nodding along and saying that he likes the recruitment side and that he's accepting X, Y, and Z, but they're clearly not players that he wants or rates if he's completely omitting them from the side for the Champions League. Maybe that's harsh. At least say they're 2 players that he doesn't hold any great expectation or hope in the initial period to make any impact at the club initially.
Yeah. Bernaby, like 4 odd million Postecoglou signing, and I think in hindsight it was a bad signing. For me, I heard somebody put it really, really well. Bernaby defend. This is not my phrase. Bernaby defending is like a dog chasing a crisp packet in the wind, you know. And even whenever he's got possession, it doesn't. You know, some people treasure possession like it. Like they're very, very smart with what they do with the ball. Bernaby is sometimes it's a bit of like hit and hope with him. You know, he says, "I'll try and pass it to this guy and see what happens." I've had little faith with Bernaby from the start. I know that you've been a wee bit more optimistic with the guy, and that's what you should be. You know, I mean, we shouldn't always write off players, but you know, we are football fans. We are fickle, and sometimes we write off people, and other times they're a world beater in their debut, and that's our opinion, and we're fixed by that. So Bernaby out, he'll be raging. Like he'll probably on the Swally tonight. You know, saying, "Fuck Brendan Rodgers." You know what I mean?
So long as he's not driving a car afterwards, that's all that matters.
He'll be hitting the nightclubs tonight, Bernaby. He'll be giving no fucks at all. He'll be earning a half decent wage, no doubt, compared to what he was on back in South America. But he might be on the phone to his agent to say, "Well, what am I doing here?"
I think that's something that Bernaby's going to do. I mean, he's had a fair bit of minutes in the last few weeks as well. He's been given opportunities and chances. He's really not stepped up and taken those chances. I don't think he's any worse than Taylor this season. Taylor was great last season in the system that we were playing, but I think both are just relatively poor this season. Taylor, in his favour, is a bit more steady and he hits the homegrown quota as well. But as you say, guys like Bernaby must be turning around thinking, right, what's the point? He's not here to play domestic football against Kilmarnock and fucking St. Johnstone. He's here to try and showcase his talent. He wants to play in the European competitions. And no offence to us, like most players who come from abroad, they want to go down south or they want to go to Spain or something like that. So, yeah, if he's not getting any European squads, he's gonna surely be on the phone to his agent and says, "Get me something else." And honestly, as long as we bring in a left back sooner rather than later, should have been 3 months ago. But as long as we bring in that left back in January, he's happy to be shown the door. I hate seeing it because I do, as you say, have a soft spot for him. Likewise, we at Abada. I want to see these players do well. I like the flair and the talent that they can bring, but he's just not good enough. End of the day.
Yeah. Bernaby probably much the same as Haksabanovic, but Haksabanovic, you could say, showed it in flashes, whereas Bernaby, I don't know. I wouldn't even go that far that he showed it in flashes. It does make you wonder why we never signed a left back in the summer. I don't know if the injuries that we got to other areas of the team made Brendan Rodgers have to change his priorities. It's a bit of a mystery. But it is what it is. In terms of Liam Scales, deputising at left back gives me the fear a bit because he's got height. He's got that over Taylor, but I think his confidence it wouldn't really be there. I know that he did play as a left back and a left wing back for, what was it, Shamrock Rovers?
Yeah.
But his preferred position is a left-sided centre back. That is his preferred position. So I think a lack of pace is one thing that kind of worries me if he's playing as a fullback, trying to get up and down the channels. And Dan Breen, I think it was Dan Breen, he said, what do you think about a 3-5-2? From what I know, we've not practiced the 3-5-2. Maybe that's kind of plan C, plan Z, perhaps, playing a 3-5-2, and Scales could still play in the back three. But yeah, I think it just shows that we should have signed a left back to give Taylor competition, meaningful competition. But because we couldn't shift Bernabei, perhaps, I don't know. It's a bit of a it is. You need to accept the reality.
I'm more understanding for the same reason that you're saying there, that we didn't go get another goalkeeper because you're sitting with Bain, Siegrist, and Hart.
Yeah.
To add a fourth one
would have been madness.
Would be madness because all three of them are, well, they're 30, and 35. They're not exactly youngsters saying, I'll be happy just to be training with the big boys sort of thing. They all do want to be playing football games. Two of them know fine well they're not going to play very many, if any, football games for Celtic anymore. And clearly Siegrist does want to move on. I think he wants to be down under with his partner and stuff, much like Starfelt wanted to get closer to Portugal and Jacinta. It's understandable. But Siegrist himself was never getting into this side, really. Even before that kind of love affair happened, he was pretty much being bombed out. Baines had his chances, opportunities. He's not hit the heights. But it would just, from a business perspective, it would feel a bit odd having four would be age-appropriate first-team goalkeepers to only actually be able to play one of them and Joe Hart. We need a fucking massive clear. All three, two of those need to get out. Hart needs to be replaced long term. I'm not advocating that he gets out the door just now. He's still a quality goalkeeper in my eyes.
His contract is up at the end of the season.
We need, exactly. But exactly that. We need to build for the future. We should have had somebody in who is going to take over from him next year, playing backup second fiddle, playing cup games, whatever it is. Because the other two, they're not the future. But then if we can't get rid of them, we can't bring in the other guy. Whereas with left back, it's only two players. They can't be on that great money, surely. Bringing in a third one could have been a possibility.
Can I pick up on something that Plunge has said? Plunge has said he wishes people would get off Bernabei's back. Now, it's good to have a variety of opinion. Well done, Plunge. Now, I think I'd written him off early, Bernabei. McGinty was, he had more faith in the player. Now, if you think that we're still kind of wide off the mark with Bernabei, if you think that Bernabei definitely has potential, can I ask you this? How long do you persevere with a player at Celtic whenever we've got priorities, we've got games to win? So how long do you persevere with a player, bearing in mind he's already been with us for a year? So how long do we continue and keep being pessimistic and saying he'll do it, it'll come, maybe change the formation? I don't know. You don't do that. The formation is the style of play is the style of play. Bernabei needs to fit into that. We can't bend over backwards to allow him to flourish. So kind of in the same way as Haksabanovic, it's nothing to do with it about being right as such. But I felt Haksabanovic wasn't doing it. And there was a popular opinion amongst some people saying, no, he's not given enough game time. I just feel that on the occasions where Bernabe is given game time, he's not contributing positively. And because we've got these priorities, you need to win every game at Celtic. You know that I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but I feel he's a passenger. That's kind of what I'm saying. And how long do you persevere with that?
I think, yeah, before you said passenger, you said something else there. They're not offering anything positive to the team. And it sounds really harsh, but actually is really freaking true. Haksabanovic a little bit more so than Bernabe, but yeah, you're sitting watching. Greg Taylor falls into this bracket this season for a very similar reason. They're not doing anything to help the team. They're actually a passenger. They're actually more of a liability. We're actually having other players having to go and help cover them when Bernabe's going AWOL wherever he runs around on the pitch, or if Taylor's hitting, miscued passes, it's Maeda that's having to jog back or sprint back at times and actually do the physical work to cover their arses. Haksabanovic was kind of a little less prone to it, but at the same time, when he goes on his little runs and his little step overs to try and do something productive and quality going forward, his end product wasn't that great. That actually you sat there and went, okay, what are you going to do next? All right, it's getting passed backwards. And the team is just waiting for him to do the negative part of the game that you want. They're not actually contributing to an end product or pushing forward or driving the team forward. They are passengers in that sense. And I think that's what we need to get rid of all these kind of players from the squad, which is hard to do at any club, let alone a club that's demanded so much success domestically and to push on in Europe. But we need to get away from having too many of these players and actually have players, at least one player for every position, all 11 positions on the pitch, so that your best 11 can all work on their individual games, but that individuality contributes to a successful system. And somebody says, I think, was it John Coyle? Yeah. We need a quality left back in the same kind of age. 100% so. And I don't believe that Ralston or Taylor are great players. But see if you've got a quality like Alistair Johnson and Ralston is his backup, who will play with heart and play with passion and be a solid player. And Taylor could do the same with the equivalent being in front of him. That's good enough for me. One quality position with somebody back up is being steady, being confident.
Yeah.
And I see when Alistair Johnson leaves, get a ready-made replacement in, something we didn't do with Jar.
Yes, exactly. There was a comment earlier for Dan Breen. He says, Gav, we don't even know what kind of player Phillips is. I was watching Axom, I think it was, what's date today? Today's Tuesday. I was watching Axom last week, and they had a Liverpool podcaster come in to speak about what Phillips can offer. He said that Phillips, one thing I took away from it is he doesn't have that much pace. He's a bit like a Shane Duffy type player.
That doesn't fill me with any confidence.
any ball that comes into the box, he'll head it out. He was a bit of a cult figure at Liverpool. He played for Liverpool in the Champions League whenever they had an injury crisis. And in fact, see the Shane Duffy thing, they never said that. I just put that in because that's what I kind of took from it. But he's not blessed with pace. So I guess if you've got him and Kilmacutter Vickers, where's the pace there? You know what I mean? But backs to the wall, he's a defender who will get you out of trouble. He played for Liverpool in the Champions League when they had their injury crisis, and he didn't put a foot wrong. He also had a really great moment that you'll see on YouTube where he sent Zlatan Ibrahimovic for a hot dog. So that's that. Apart from that, I've never seen him play. But out of the Rotten Mob signed a player, was it Davis or something like that from Liverpool as well?
Yeah,
Phillips is the better of the two players. So that's what I took. Another comment that I saw here about all the deadwood and this squad needs to be culled and quality added. I heard the statistic. Fucking Feyenoord, who are going to be playing in the Champions League, they've got a lower wage bill than us. But whenever we talk about our squad needing culled, we've got all these players who are picking up wages who really shouldn't be there. People like McCarthy. So perhaps if you got rid of that deadwood, then perhaps would be more of an even keel with Phenord. But we are paying more in wages right now than Phenord. That's crazy. And they're the pot 1 team. We're the pot 4 team. What do you make of that, McGinty?
It's absolutely nuts, and it puts to rest sometimes these debates that Celtic fans will have amongst ourselves about, can we push the boat out a little bit more, or should we stop spending £1 to £3 million on 3 different players for the one position and just go spend £7 million on one player and get the quality that you need? Yes, you would have to pay them maybe £35,000-40,000 a week as opposed to 3 players on £15,000 a week, but just get the goddamn quality and stop trying to find the hidden gem, because there's so much deadwood in this club. I know I'm on a wee tangent there as well. I want to bring this one up from Ian. Reading the game compensates for pace. We talk about Nat Phillips here and the potential of having Phillips and Carter Vickers, and the fact that there isn't much pace in there. If you could imagine playing Taylor, Phillips, Carter Vickers, Ralston, Hart, O'Reilly, Turnbull, McGregor. Let's pretend Haksabanovic was still here and he's playing on the left side, and bloody James Forrest on the right side. All up front. There's like no pace in that squad at all. And that's not a million miles away from a potential squad that we could end up fielding one day and when times are hard. I agree with Ian. Compensates if you can read the game well. Look at guys like Carlos Puyol, not blessed with great pace either, but he read the game so freaking well. Same as Sergio Ramos. Now, of course, we're not at that caliber, but you need pace elsewhere in the team. We need a guy like Hatate, that if your 2 defenders are not as pacey, you've got a guy like Hatate who's got the tenacity and the energy to come back and help out and turn the game around.
Yeah, I think with 2 centre-backs, you don't want them to be the same. You need one to complement the other. One, the kind of the ball playing, one the kind of the tough man, one with pace, one who reads the game, that sort of thing. So that was just the kind of only kind of fear that I had. If you've got 2 centre-backs who are not blessed with pace. Again, perhaps if we're playing a low line in the Champions League away from home, then that wouldn't be exposed as much. But perhaps when we're on the front foot at home, then there's a possibility of us looking vulnerable. McGinty, an interesting question I have for you is, in terms of the recruitment now, what's the pecking order in terms of, I think the most intriguing question is the midfield pecking order now. Now, I'm a big fan of O'Reilly now. I'm becoming a big fan of O'Reilly. McGregor's obviously McGregor. He's the first name on the sheet. So, but we've got a few new players. Home is getting a steady group of fans right now. By the way, see Home right at the end of the game against Todd Cantwell, well, like he was about to.
Did you see it? Oh no!
Home is brilliant at dispossessing players cleanly. Like, he might go to ground, but he does it cleanly. I saw it in these YouTube clips. I'm a big fan of Home, but there's a lot to learn. And playing for Celtic comes with standards. That'll be a new thing for him to adapt to. He's only a 20-year-old, but it's a bright future for him. But anyway, for the midfield, so we've got like McGregor, we've got O'Reilly, we've got Bernardo in as well. He's a young boy. He's away with the Portugal under-21s. He's a bit of an unknown quantity. I watched his YouTube clips and I found it difficult to get a strong grasp of what he does. He looks a fairly physical player though, so he doesn't look as if he's going to get bullied off the ball. But where do you envisage, once things are settled, what do you envisage our midfield trio to be? And for the guys in the comments, let me know what you think about that as well.
So I've said it many times. I like to play in my mind 2 11s as well. Yeah, exactly. I like to play in my mind 2 11s, a starting 11 and a backup 11. And I want both to be not equal to each other, but as close to as possible, because you have to accept that you can't have 22 first-team players. You're going to have to make some allowances for development players, and the fact is you just can't afford to have that many caliber of players. But I think your midfield trio, on paper, your first-team trio is McGregor, Hatate, and O'Reilly. What kind of diamond, triangle, flat 3 that they play is up for debate, but I think those 3 are your first 3 names down. After that, the backup 3 for me would be Holm. I'd have to assume Bernardo, although I've not seen anything of him, just because of the expectations where he's came from his caliber, that I have to presume that Brendan Rodgers did want this player in. And then the kind of attacking midfielder, I don't know. Is it Turnbull? Which then begs the question of Kwon and Iwata. Where do they fit in? Because I don't think you can play Holm, Iwata, and Bernardo. I think all three of them are kind of defensive sitting midfielders. Not one of those is very attacking minded. And we do know that Rodgers does like an attacking midfielder in there somewhere. So I can see the first three. I can potentially see two of the backup three, but I can definitely see two players in Kwon and Iwata that screams out, where do they fit in? And I like the look of Iwata. I think Iwata is actually more like an attacking player. And if I wanted a like for like, McGregor for Holm, Hatate for Iwata, and Turnbull for O'Reilly, that would be the like for like. But I just don't see that that's the backup three sort of thing. Not when you've signed Bernardo. He's got to be in there surely, be it a Rodgers firm signing or a club signing that Rodgers likes or not. It has to be Bernardo and Holm in there at least, and the third one, who knows.
We've got a comment here for Francis. Francis, thanks for giving us your comment. You're saying some people aren't happy unless they're moaning, for fuck's sake. Big CCV will be away next season, so Big Phillips might be his replacement. As far as I'm aware, Phillips is only on a 6-month loan, so it'd be difficult to turn that into a permanent transfer. And I know that you're saying people shouldn't moan, but you're also saying that CCV is going to be away. You can't have it both ways, but thank you very much for your comment.
It's something, Gavin, that we actually brought up last week. We touched on it briefly, that guys like Carter Vickers and O'Reilly, they're not here to play 6, 7, 8 seasons at Celtic, especially not O'Reilly. You got to assume that they're going to look for a move elsewhere. O'Reilly very much likely would look for the EPL move. I think Carter Vickers, judging by his age and where he came from and the loan spells he's had previously, probably reckons and knows that he's not getting, top 6, top 10 EPL clubs. He probably recognises his level's not there. But at some point, he's probably want to go play in Spain or Bundesliga or something, surely. If he doesn't, he wants to stay Celtic for the next 5 years, I'm happy. I'll take that all day long. But you need to be looking at a replacement. And Big Phillips, his name came up last week when we thought about it. He is only here for 6 months. But see if he has a good 6 months. I don't see why we wouldn't extend the loan at least to the end of the season and potentially put in or ask to put in that buy option that if Carter Vickers does leave next year, say for 15 million, and we've got a buy option of 8 million for Phillips, that you might have the ready-made replacement right there. Different type of player, but a caliber equivalent of going straight in it. Because if you can have Carter Vickers, Nawrocki, and Lagerbielke as your kind of 3 centre-backs rotating through, if you lose Carter Vickers and you just replace him with Phillips, that's still potentially, because we need to see how they all pan out, potentially 3 players who are all of a good calibre.
Right, well, we chose, Starfelt left, we chose to buy Nawrocki because he fits our profile. Phillips doesn't really. He's a wee bit older and he's not perhaps a cultured defender. He's more of a warrior. I don't think Phillips fits our transfer mould. And coming from Liverpool, there will be a premium that we have to pay in him. So I think if we wanted to buy him, then we would have bought him in the summer. We wouldn't have waited till the last minute to get him on a 6-month loan. I would label him as emergency centre-back. I don't see... By the way, I hope he does well because we're going to need him to do well. We're going to depend on him in the Champions League. But one player who does possibly buck the trend is Kyogo. We've got him at an interesting period in his career where his next big contract was going to be a major one, a major decision for him. And obviously signed it with Celtic. He's about 28, going on 29 now. So that's a major coup for us. It might buck that trend of a great player leaving Celtic for pastures new. So we might get the best years of him, which is great. And you spoke about O'Reilly as well. I think O'Reilly is obviously he's young, but I think he's a very intelligent person off the park. And he left Fulham to go to MK Dons for playing time, and then he left MK Dons to come to Celtic because he knew that we were serious about getting him, and he played every game under Postecoglou last season, albeit some as a sub, some as a starter, and now he's had a brilliant start to the season. At the same time, though, there must be this kind of like, whenever you're playing like Ross County 4 times a season, whenever you've already completed the treble, you're thinking, especially if you're not of the mould of like Callum McGregor, James Forrest, who they're born and bred here, and they might not have that desire to leave, even though they're talented enough to leave. Perhaps if you're not born and bred in Scotland, then O'Reilly might be susceptible to that, and after a couple of years he might want away. I hope that's not the case, but I think he strikes me as the intelligent type, and he'll only leave for the right type of move. Much as I hate to say it, I think Postecoglou left for the right type of club, and I think O'Reilly might be in the similar vein. But until that offer comes, until that opportunity comes, I think he'll be very, very content to stay here, ply his trade to Scotland, winning trophies and playing in the Champions League. So I don't think there's any rush for him to leave.
I think you'd be right. I 100% don't see him staying here too long. But I think you're 100% right that he's an intelligent boy. He's a smart lad. He's not going to leave us. I wouldn't imagine, and I've been wrong about these kind of things before, but I don't imagine he's going to leave us to go down south to Everton or Wolves. If he's got a trajectory, then he's going to leave us to... Does he leave us to go straight to a top 6, top 8 team, like a European spot club in England? He potentially could do, but he needs to do a lot more to guarantee that move. But I think he comes across as a guy who would be quite happy to go abroad if he had to or wanted to. Now, he could easily go to a decent team in Germany. Denmark is probably a step sideways. But I reckon he could go to he could go to a Wolfsburg level team quite easily and do well. He could go to, I know Leon aren't doing too great, but I'm just thinking Dembele went there and did not too bad. Could he get his move directly to Spain to Real Betis, perhaps? He would fit in probably quite well there for his technical ability. But a team that would be looking for European spots in a bigger league to then showcase himself to go on to the next big team. I think he's smart enough to see the pathway. And I don't think he's dumb enough, unless he really stagnates at Celtic. I don't think he's dumb enough to leave too soon to go to what would be perceived as a lesser club just for the sake of the money aspect of it. Now, I'm leaving up the comment here about Kyogo will do an Nakamura and play until his 40s back in Japan when he leaves us. And somebody else said that he could see Kyogo doing 5-6 years for us. I want to bring it up just to bring up the question to yourself, Gavin. I know we discussed it a little bit in the group chat. Kyogo signed his contract extension this summer. Another 4 years from now, I think it is, which would give us 6 years of Kyogo-ness. He's, I know, don't ask me. But he's being compared to, stat-wise, the first 88 games compared to Henrik Larsson's first 88 games. And his goals and assists and his minutes played, depending on how you want to manipulate the stats, depending on how you want to look at it, they're comparable to Henrik Larsson in the sense that his return figures are pretty fucking good. Now, if he does last the 6-7 years as Larsson did before he moved on, and let's remember Larsson signed around about the same age, that kind of 26 mark is what Kyogo signed for us. That's a good stint at a club of a good quality caliber player. And do you think Kyogo would see through that contract without pushing for the move? The fact that he's re-signed an extension, do you think he's happy to stay here for another few years and make in time that good argument to be compared to Larsson number-wise, not ability? But, number-wise, obviously we can debate ability and standards of clubs and stuff.
I don't think his target will be to be compared to Henrik Larsson. even though he probably has some idea of our history. But to answer the question, does he see his future, at Celtic for the remainder of that contract? I think only he would be able to tell you. I'm sure there's a number of factors. Like, I don't know if the guy's got a family, and obviously that has a massive bearing as well. I remember whenever he signed for Celtic, I think he'd mentioned in one of his interviews that he had always harboured the ambition to play in Spain. So I think he's landed at a magical football club. Obviously, I'm going to say that because I'm a Celtic fan, but there is a romanticism and a magnetism about Celtic, which I hope permeates to the foreign players who come here and get to appreciate it and to learn about it and to feel the love from the fans. So I hope that that's infectious to him. Certainly, he knows the fans love him. But it must be difficult to an extent because he doesn't speak fluent English. I would imagine he does speak broken English to an extent. And whether him living in Scotland is helped by the fact that there's other Japanese players, does that have an effect? If he still has Japanese teammates around him? That sounds a bit... it might sound like a bit of a sad comment to make. Well, he needs Japanese friends to keep him here. But it must be a wee bit lonely, like playing in a team like that, wherever you don't speak the language, where you're maybe on the periphery of conversations, but certainly on the field. Football has one language on the field without sounding too cheesy. But, is it going to stay the test of time, the 4 years? Like, Christ, we would be the beneficiaries of that as fans, being able to see him week in, week out. And the highlight reel will be incredible. But I think only he will be able to tell you whether he's got lingering ambitions. He might do another year here, try and banish the ghosts of being able to score in the Champions League. Maybe that will be his ambition, and then he might want to be off ski. But I hope he stays here for as long as possible, because the one comparison that I will make is his movement compared to Henrik Larsson is very, very similar.
Definitely.
One thing, you see that stat though about the comparison, the goals. I want to know what Lee Griffiths was sitting on after 88 games. I just want to see where he was, and perhaps Gary Hooper as well.
I don't think Lee Griffiths would have been that good after 88 games. Was it not season 3 under Ronnie Dyler where he ended up hitting that 40 goals, was it, in that season? So his first 88 games, I don't think would have looked too great. I mean, still would have been good because he was a good goal scorer for us regardless. But his peak for his 40-goal season one, I think that was probably after his 88th game. So I think that stat would look a bit worse than Kyogo and Larsson. Gary Hooper certainly should probably be up there. And probably talked about it a bit more. But I think you made a nice, interesting point there about how the fans would get the benefit of having Kyogo here for the next 4 years. And I think that's something that should be comparable if he does stay for the 4 years. And if he stays for 4 years and he's been here for overall 6 years and he leaves on a free contract, I think I'd be more than happy to see that happen, to finally have a player. Because when was the last time, was it Larsson, that we had somebody stay for 6 or 7 years who was truly a world-class player, special, held a place in our hearts, maybe not to the same level as Larsson, but held a place in our hearts, and then you were actually emotionally sad to see him leave, but appreciate it at the same time. Obviously, McGregor, Forrest, 10 years and all the rest of it, boyhood clubs, love it, brilliant, all the respect in the world, but it's a little bit different when a foreigner comes in and gets the club and has that caliber and skill level that truly is what the club needs and deserves to have, which Larsson 100% is, and Kyogo not at this exact same level as Larsson, but he's definitely a caliber of player that we deserve to have.
Yeah. I'm just reading the comments here. It's a good question that you make, mate. For Ian, Kyogo has witnessed the esteem that Naka has held in. He will eclipse this and go down as a legend, in my opinion. I was actually watching on BT Sport. They show it's like half an hour clips of highlights of the Champions League games, and it was the Celtic Man U at Parkhead, and that was the Nakamura free kick game. I'm just looking at the calibre of player fielded by Man U. compared to what we were fielding, and the fact that we managed to grind out a result and just that bit of magic from Nakamura. Certainly, Kyogo, I want to see him score in the Champions League. We didn't do great last season in terms of goals scored. I want to see him being able to do that for just to prove to himself. And it's an interesting one as well because he never really gets picked for his country as a starter. Maida is kind of ahead of him in the pecking order, but it's kind of fit the style of play. But in terms of heroes, foreign heroes who came here, who the fans have embraced, it's difficult to think of any comparison from the Larsson departure because people were genuinely in tears. I was sad whenever Jota left us, but 25 million in your pocket does kind of
makes up for it.
Does kind of compensate. Lubo, whenever he left as well, I thought he left maybe a season too early. Could have stayed for the Seville run. But it is what it is. That's part and parcel of football. Heroes will come and new heroes will be forged. One thing I would like to see is a hero being made, like a homegrown hero. It's been far too long. Obviously, McGregor, but...
Well, I was just going to say, what counts as a homegrown hero in that sense? I don't know what we're talking about is more the flair attacking the goal scoring.
I was thinking
player that's different from the midfielder that McGregor is. But McGregor surely is the homegrown hero for now.
He's a hero, and he's someone who represents Celtic brilliantly on and off the park. But I guess when I blurted out homegrown hero, I was probably thinking of someone who I would be recognised on a world stage as, Christ, Celtic have got a good player. And even if he left, you'd always be thinking back to he played for Celtic. Not that I'm wishing a homegrown hero will fly the nest, but
Are we?
Paul McStay, I was thinking like a Paul McStay type player without the injuries. Yeah,
Paul McStay without the injuries. You're going back to that kind of era of a time when you could say we had quite a few players, or you were confident that the next one would come out. But would we have to go back to Kieran Tierney as that one who flew the nest, and for a period while he's at Arsenal, he actually was really looked at quite fondly and quite thought of at Arsenal as being a quality player. He's now at Sociedad on a season-long loan, and from what I understand, he started that first game pretty damn well as well. He could be that player that will be known as a Celtic player who's went on to achieve good things in the game. But going back to the Kyogo kind of thing, and in a sense of what to expect after the time at Celtic once they've done a great stint at the club. Larsson left and went to Barcelona and won Barcelona the Champions League. In my eyes, he was integral in the 2 goals that got them that win. And he was looked upon by the Barcelona players. Even Ronaldinho talked fondly about Henrik Larsson. He was sought after by Man United and all the rest. We all know the stories and the history of it all. Can I see Kyogo going on and doing the same? Like going to another club and winning them, or being an integral part in a championship side winning team, be it, an Inter Milan to win the league or whatever? Probably not, because football's went on so much that, generally speaking, anybody who comes through the Celtic, they're probably not ever going to be that good anymore, unless, again, go back to the homegrown hero thing, you can find somebody who is truly world class. But that brings in a bigger question that we've got not enough time for tonight about what we do to bring through development of these players, because we don't do enough of it just now from a club level and specifically more a national level.
Mm-hmm. Last wee point of tonight before we wrap things up, because I know that the game is well and truly underway now. Talking about Celtic heroes, perhaps not a homegrown hero, but a hero nonetheless, Scott Brown. He gets sacked from Fleetwood Town. What do you think the future holds for him? Do you think he will be a manager in his own right, or do you think he'll be a coach? And do you ever want to see him return back to Parkhead in one guise or another?
I think he did well last season, from what I understand, at Fleetwood, so I think he should probably hold himself in good stead to say, I can go forward and achieve a successful managerial career. He's still young. He's still the same age as we are, sort of thing. he's still got 25, 30 years of being a manager if he really wants to hone that skill. Could he be a Celtic manager in the future? 100%. If
Really?
he's good enough.
Well, that's
But he
the
needs
thing.
to
Is he
do
good
that
enough?
away. He needs to
Is
do
he-
that away from the club.
Is he good enough? Like, do you get whenever you see like former Celtic players like Sean Maloney? Obviously, he went to Hibs, went to Wigan. You've had going back further, like people, Paul Lambert. Not that I'm entertaining that, but whenever you see a former Celtic player go into the managerial role, do you get a feeling, a sense to say, yeah, he could actually do that? Like, look at Gerrard. Look at Gerrard. They had all the presence, all the experience in the world, but he's a fucking donkey as a manager.
Well, he's an absolute donkey. He plays off his name, though. I think the best thing that Scott Brown could do is one of two things. And he needs to be very careful now. As much as I believe that he did have a reasonably successful period last year with Fleetwood, he's had a terrible start this season, and that's what's seen him being shown the door. He needs to be very particular with the next club he picks to manage.
Yes.
Somebody's mentioning, Corvo mentions he could see him at Hibs. Yeah, 100% I could see him at a Hibs, but he needs to pick it at the right time, because if he goes into a Hibs and Hibs screw him over, or things are just against him that he can't, nobody can get a tune out of Hibs at times. Sometimes people can, but it's very seldom. He needs to pick a club where not so much that the money will buy him success, but the club needs to have a structure and a setup that will support a developing manager, that will say, here, be our manager, bring your presence, bring your knowledge, bring your charisma, bring everything that you know. But by the way, you do have a team of coaches who actually know what the fuck they're doing. And you have a wealth of an academy to rely on for good talent and all the rest of it. And you can actually get his things across on the pitch and do reasonably well. Because if he has a second failure quite quickly, he might go down the route of a Chris Sutton, was it Luton and Livingston? I think Sutton was manager, and realise it's just not going to work out. His other option, if he doesn't pick the right club quickly enough, is possibly to go down the route of being a coach again, rather than being a manager, and just take a half a step back. He was a coach in the background per se at Celtic with the youth team and whatnot. Maybe he should take that step back, not all the way back to youth coach, but be a coach like Maloney is or was with Martinez at Belgium. Go learn the trade a bit more, being the right-hand man or the second in command, and take a year or two just to hone his skill a little bit before he delves back into the managerial role, and he can then bring his fresh approach. But whatever he does, before we entertain giving him a position as even an assistant coach, let alone the manager at Celtic, is he needs to go away and actually prove to be a success. If his level is being a coach, fantastic, go prove yourself, and then come back if you want to. If his level is going to be a manager, again, go prove it somewhere. Go to Norway, go to Spain, go to Germany, go to Finland, go to Denmark, wherever it is. Pick a fucking club and go do well and prove yourself, and then come back to Celtic if that's what he wants to do, and that's what Celtic want to do. But I'm not ready to take an ex-player on just because of his name and give him a job for the boys, and then sit here and go, yeah, you can talk a good game, but after 6 months to 18 months, we're in a Neil Lennon situation again. No, thank you.
Okay. Well, we wonder how he gets on in the snakes and ladders game, which is management in modern day football. Aye. Right. Anyway, guys, it's past 8 o'clock, and I still need to get my dinner. My stomach is rumbling. Thanks very, very much for tuning in. Obviously, we know that the game is on right now. Thank you. We really appreciate that. We'll be on next Tuesday. McGinty, we've got Celtic this weekend against Dundee, I believe. So that'll be interesting, and perhaps on occasion an opportunity for some debuts. People like Bernardo, Palma coming off the bench most likely rather than starting, but it should be an interesting one. So I'm looking forward to that. So we will we'll be back next Tuesday for another Tuesday Tic Talk. But thank you very much, McGinney. Any last words before we exit?
No, pretty much just that. Was looking forward to the next game against Dundee. Expecting maybe one debut to start, but I'm expecting to see at least 3 new faces and the names that you've just said. Because otherwise, why the fuck are they signing them if we're not going to play these bastards? But I'm expecting to see new faces. I'm positive going forward, especially after the win last week, that we can just be a bit more positive about everything and kind of hope for the best. So hopefully it's a good game at the weekend. Hopefully we get the win. And either which way, though, we'll be back next Tuesday.
Excellent, mate. Excellent. Brilliant. Right, guys, love yous and leave yous. But we'll be back next Tuesday. Have a good one.
All the best. Hail, hail.